What makes some women naturally magnetic without ever chasing attention? It's not perfection beauty or trying to impress everyone. It's the quiet habits they practice when nobody is watching. In this speech, I'll reveal 20 secret habits of naturally magnetic women. Habits that build confidence, protect your peace, and change the way you show up in life and relationships. If this message speaks to you, like this video, subscribe, and let's begin. A naturally magnetic woman understands that her worth does not begin when someone notices her, compliments her, chooses her, or approves of her. Her worth exists before anyone gives her attention. She doesn't wake up every morning asking the world to confirm that she is beautiful, intelligent, capable, interesting, or deserving. She may appreciate compliments, but she doesn't depend on them. She may enjoy attention, but she doesn't build her identity around receiving it. There is a quiet difference between enjoying validation and needing validation, and she learns that difference through experience. For a long time, many women are taught to look outside themselves for evidence of their value. They may compare their appearance with other women, measure their success against friends, worry about whether someone likes them, constantly wonder what people think about their choices. Social media can make this even stronger because every day there are thousands of images showing what success, beauty, relationships, and happiness are supposedly supposed to look like. A woman can easily begin believing that she needs to become someone else before she is worthy of being appreciated, but a magnetic woman begins to question that idea. She asks herself, who am I when nobody is watching? She becomes interested in her character, her values, her mindset, her discipline, and the way she treats herself when there is no applause. She realizes that external attention can disappear quickly, while self-respect becomes something she can carry with her everywhere. This doesn't mean she becomes arrogant or believes she is better than everyone else. Knowing your worth is not thinking you are above people. It is refusing to believe that you are beneath them. She can admire another woman's success without feeling threatened. She can appreciate another woman's beauty without criticizing her own. She can celebrate someone else's relationship without believing that being single makes her incomplete. She understands that another person's greatness does not reduce hers. She also stops changing herself simply to remain acceptable to everyone. She understands that if she constantly adjusts her personality, opinions, appearance, and boundaries according to whoever is around her, eventually she won't recognize herself. She becomes more comfortable saying what she genuinely thinks. She learns to disagree respectfully. She allows herself to have preferences. She accepts that not everyone will understand her choices. She stops treating that reality like an emergency. A woman who knows her worth also becomes more careful about whose opinions she takes seriously. Not every criticism deserves equal weight. Someone who doesn't know her values, her struggles, her goals, or her character cannot define her identity with one negative comment. She can listen to constructive criticism without allowing random opinions to control her self-image. She asks, is there something useful here that can help me grow? If there is, she learns. If there isn't, she lets it go. This creates emotional stability. She doesn't become completely confident one day and completely insecure the next simply because someone's behavior changed. If someone compliments her, she doesn't suddenly believe she is extraordinary. If someone rejects her, she doesn't suddenly believe she is worthless. She understands that both reactions are temporary opinions and experiences, not final definitions of who she is. She also stops chasing people who make her question her value. She may care deeply about someone. She notices whether the relationship is mutual. She notices whether there is effort, honesty, respect, and consistency. She doesn't believe that working harder will always make someone appreciate her. Sometimes the healthiest thing she can do is accept that a particular person is not capable of giving her what she needs and stop trying to convince them. Her confidence becomes especially visible in the way she handles rejection. Rejection can hurt, and she doesn't pretend otherwise. But she refuses to turn rejection into a personal identity. Someone not choosing her may mean that the connection wasn't right, the timing wasn't right, the values weren't aligned, or the other person simply wanted something different. She doesn't automatically translate no into I am not enough. She also learns to make decisions without constantly asking for permission. She can seek advice from people she trusts, but she doesn't outsource her entire life to other people's opinions. She listens, thinks, reflects, and then chooses. If she makes a mistake, she learns from it. She doesn't spend years punishing herself for one decision, because she understands that growth requires experience. This self-trust makes her presence different. She doesn't need to enter a room demanding attention. She can sit quietly and still appear comfortable. She can speak when she has something meaningful to say and remain silent when she doesn't. She doesn't interrupt every conversation because she fears being ignored. She doesn't exaggerate her achievements because she needs everyone to know how successful she is. Her confidence becomes less performative and more grounded. She begins to understand that being magnetic isn't about being liked by everyone. It is about being deeply comfortable with who you are while remaining open to growth. She doesn't try to manufacture mystery, create jealousy, or play emotional games. She simply becomes less available for situations that require her to abandon herself. She protects her standards without becoming rigid. She remains kind without becoming a people pleaser. She remains humble without making herself small. She remains open-hearted without giving everyone unlimited access to her emotions, time, and energy, and because she knows her worth, she becomes more intentional about what she accepts. She asks whether a relationship brings peace or constant confusion. She asks whether a friendship is based on mutual respect or convenience. She asks whether an opportunity supports her long-term goals or simply gives her temporary attention. She starts making choices based on alignment rather than desperation. The more she practices this, the less she needs to prove herself. She doesn't need to convince someone to see her value. She doesn't need to compete with another woman for attention. She doesn't need to explain every decision. She doesn't need to perform confidence for an audience. She simply lives from the belief that she is already worthy of respect. That belief changes the way she walks, speaks, chooses, loves, works, and responds. It gives her the courage to leave what diminishes her and the patience to wait for what genuinely aligns with her values. It allows her to pursue growth without constantly checking whether someone is impressed. It helps her become the kind of woman who can receive attention without becoming dependent on it. Receive criticism without being destroyed by it. Receive love without losing herself in it. And receive rejection without allowing it to rewrite the story she tells herself about who she is, what she deserves, and the woman she is still becoming, quietly strengthening that inner foundation every time she chooses self-respect over approval, authenticity over performance, and trust in herself over the endless need to be told that she is enough. A naturally magnetic woman understands that protecting her peace is not about avoiding people, hiding from challenges, or pretending that nothing bothers her. It is about becoming intentional with her energy. She knows that not every argument deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves her attention, and not every person deserves unlimited access to her time and emotions. She has learned that peace is one of the most valuable things she can protect, because once she constantly gives it away, she becomes distracted from the life she is trying to build. She begins by creating boundaries. She learns that saying no does not make her cold, selfish, or difficult. Sometimes no simply means that she understands her limits. She doesn't agree to everything just because someone asks. She doesn't sacrifice her plans every time another person needs something. She can be supportive without becoming permanently available. This is especially powerful because many people become comfortable with the version of you that never says no. They may expect immediate replies, constant attention, endless favors, and unlimited emotional support. When you begin setting boundaries, people may say that you've changed. A magnetic woman doesn't automatically see that as an insult. Sometimes changing is necessary. When the old version of you was constantly exhausted from trying to keep everyone happy, she also learns to recognize emotional chaos. Not every disagreement needs to become a battle. Not every criticism requires a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs hours of explanation. She asks herself whether responding will create understanding or simply create another argument. If the conversation is productive, she communicates. If it becomes disrespectful or repetitive, she knows when to step away. Her peace becomes more important than winning. She also becomes selective about the people she keeps close. She notices how she feels after spending time with someone. Does she feel encouraged or drained? Does she feel respected or constantly judged? Can she be honest without fear? Can she grow without being criticized for changing? These questions help her understand that relationships influence her emotional environment. She doesn't expect everyone to agree with her. She expects basic respect. She can accept different personalities and opinions, but she doesn't normalize manipulation, constant disrespect, or emotional exhaustion simply because she cares about someone. Protecting her peace also means protecting her mind. She becomes more aware of what she consumes every day. She realizes that constantly watching negativity, comparing herself to strangers online, or listening to endless complaints can quietly affect her mindset. She becomes intentional about what she allows into her mental space. She chooses conversations that help her grow. She follows ideas that inspire her. She gives herself time away from constant notifications and noise. She creates moments where she can think, reflect, and reconnect with herself. She understands that peace doesn't mean having a perfect life. Problems will still happen. People will still disappoint her. Plans will still change. The difference is that she no longer allows every external event to control her internal state. She learns to pause before reacting. She breathes. She thinks. She decides what deserves her energy. And when she protects her peace consistently, something changes. She becomes calmer. She becomes clearer. She becomes less reactive. She stops explaining herself to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She stops chasing closure from people who cannot provide it. She stops trying to control how everyone sees her. She realizes that sometimes peace comes from accepting that she cannot control other people's choices. She cannot force someone to understand her. She cannot make someone respect her. She cannot control whether someone stays. She cannot make someone communicate honestly. What she can control is how much access she gives those behaviors to her life. This doesn't mean she stops caring. In fact, she may care deeply. She understands that caring about someone doesn't require destroying herself for them. She can love someone and still maintain boundaries. She can forgive someone without giving them the same access again. She can understand someone's struggles without allowing their struggles to become a permanent excuse for hurting her. Her boundaries become an expression of self-respect, and the more she respects herself, the more naturally magnetic she becomes. She doesn't create drama to gain attention. She doesn't need chaos to feel important. She doesn't confuse emotional intensity with genuine connection. She begins valuing stability, honesty, consistency, and peace. She learns that the right people don't need unlimited access to prove that they care. They understand that everyone needs space. They respect her time. They appreciate her boundaries. They don't punish her for taking care of herself. And when someone becomes upset because she has finally established healthy boundaries, she doesn't immediately abandon those boundaries just to restore temporary peace. She understands that sometimes discomfort is part of growth, and protecting her peace may require disappointing people who benefited from her lack of boundaries, leaving her with more clarity, more emotional strength, and more room to focus on the people, goals, and experiences that genuinely deserve a place in her life. while becoming increasingly comfortable choosing peace over pressure, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over the constant need to keep everyone else comfortable. A naturally magnetic woman understands that chasing attention is one of the fastest ways to lose connection with herself. She can show interest, communicate honestly, and make an effort, but she doesn't spend her life trying to convince someone to choose her. She knows that genuine connection should involve mutual effort, and when she is constantly doing all the reaching, explaining, waiting, and proving, she begins to recognize that she is no longer building a relationship. She is trying to earn one. She stops asking, "How can I make them want me?" and starts asking, "Are they showing me that they genuinely value me?" That shift changes everything. Instead of obsessing over every message, delayed response, or small change in someone's behavior, she looks at the bigger pattern. Does this person consistently communicate? Do they make time? Do they respect her boundaries? Do their actions match their words? Does the connection bring more clarity than confusion? She understands that attention is easy to receive temporarily. Someone can send hundreds of messages and still not be emotionally available. Someone can say all the right things and still fail to show up when it matters. Someone can express strong attraction and still not be capable of building a healthy relationship. So she doesn't judge connection only by intensity. She pays attention to consistency. This doesn't mean she becomes cold or plays games. She doesn't ignore someone deliberately to create curiosity. She doesn't pretend not to care. She doesn't use jealousy as a strategy. Her magnetism comes from authenticity rather than manipulation. She can tell someone she likes them without becoming dependent on their response. She can be vulnerable without losing her self-respect. When someone doesn't reciprocate her effort, she doesn't immediately assume something is wrong with her. She understands that compatibility is not something you can force. Two good people can want different things. Two attractive people can have different values. Two caring people can simply not be right for each other. Rejection may hurt, but it doesn't have to become a judgment of her worth. She also stops chasing closure from people who have already given her an answer through their behavior. Sometimes silence is information. Sometimes inconsistency is information. Sometimes repeated disappointment is information. She doesn't need to keep asking the same question when the pattern has already answered it. This creates a powerful kind of freedom. She no longer spends hours wondering what someone meant. She watches what they do. She no longer begs for reassurance. She looks for consistency. She no longer tries to convince someone that she is worth choosing. She gives them the opportunity to show whether they recognize her value. And when they don't, she can walk away. Walking away doesn't mean she never cared. It means she cares about herself too. She understands that staying in a situation where she is constantly questioning her value can slowly damage the confidence she has worked hard to build. She also stops chasing opportunities that repeatedly undervalue her. If a workplace constantly ignores her contributions, she starts looking for environments where her skills can grow. If a friendship always requires her to initiate, she stops forcing the connection. If someone repeatedly gives her mixed signals, she stops treating uncertainty as a challenge she must solve. She becomes a chooser. She asks whether something fits her values, her goals, and her future. She doesn't accept every opportunity simply because it is available. She doesn't accept every relationship simply because someone is interested. She understands that being wanted is not the same as being compatible. This mindset makes her more selective without making her arrogant. She doesn't think she is better than other people. She simply understands that her time and energy are limited. She wants to invest them wisely. She begins choosing peace over confusion, consistency over intensity, effort over promises, and genuine connection over temporary attention. And because she has stopped chasing, she becomes more present in her own life. She has goals to pursue, friendships to nurture, skills to develop, experiences to enjoy, and dreams that don't depend on another person's decision. Her world doesn't stop because someone doesn't text back. Her confidence doesn't disappear because someone loses interest. Her future doesn't become meaningless because one relationship ends, she continues moving forward. That is where her magnetism comes from. She doesn't need to convince people to stay because she knows she can continue without them. She doesn't need to demand attention because she has meaningful things competing for her attention already. She doesn't need to prove that she is valuable because she has stopped using other people's choices as the measurement of her value. She becomes a woman who can love deeply without losing herself, communicate openly without begging, give generously without overgiving, and walk away without bitterness when something no longer aligns with who she is becoming, allowing her relationships to develop through mutual effort rather than constant pursuit, and allowing her life to be shaped by what genuinely chooses her back, respects her, supports her, and meets her with the same energy she is willing to give herself and the people she truly values. A naturally magnetic woman carries herself with quiet confidence because she has stopped believing that she needs to prove her value to everyone around her. She doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room, the most noticed person, or the person constantly receiving compliments. Her confidence comes from knowing herself, trusting her decisions, and understanding what she brings to the world. She knows that confidence isn't about thinking you are better than everyone else. It is about no longer believing that everyone else is better than you. She can walk into a room filled with successful, beautiful, intelligent women and appreciate them without feeling threatened. She understands that someone else's strengths don't take away from her own. This changes the way she presents herself. She doesn't constantly seek reassurance about how she looks or how people perceive her. She takes care of herself because she values herself, not because she needs everyone else to approve of her appearance. She dresses in ways that make her feel comfortable and confident. She takes care of her body because she respects it. Her goal isn't to become someone else's ideal woman, but to become more comfortable being herself. Quiet confidence also changes how she speaks. She doesn't rush to explain every decision. She doesn't feel pressured to fill every silence. She can listen without feeling invisible. She can speak without needing everyone to agree. She understands that her opinion has value even when someone challenges it. She also becomes comfortable saying, "I don't know." She doesn't pretend to have all the answers just to appear intelligent. She understands that admitting uncertainty creates room for learning. She can ask questions, receive feedback, and change her mind when she discovers something better. Her confidence is strong enough to survive being wrong. A magnetic woman also learns to handle criticism differently. Instead of immediately becoming defensive, she pauses and considers the message. Is there something useful here? Is this person offering constructive feedback, or are they simply trying to make me feel small? She doesn't automatically accept criticism, but she doesn't automatically reject it either. She becomes thoughtful about what deserves her emotional reaction. Someone's disagreement doesn't automatically become a personal attack. Someone's rejection doesn't automatically mean she is inadequate. Someone's lack of appreciation doesn't erase her achievements. She understands that people see life through their own experiences, preferences, insecurities, and expectations. She also stops chasing the need to have the last word. Sometimes she knows she is right and still chooses not to argue. Sometimes explaining herself would only create more confusion. Sometimes walking away is more powerful than continuing a conversation that has become disrespectful. This doesn't make her passive. When something genuinely matters, she speaks clearly. When someone crosses a serious boundary, she addresses it. When she needs to defend herself, she does so. The difference is that she responds from clarity instead of reacting from fear. Her confidence is also visible in the way she handles mistakes. She doesn't expect herself to be perfect. She knows she will sometimes choose badly, misunderstand someone, say the wrong thing, or experience failure. Instead of using those moments as evidence that she is incapable, she treats them as opportunities to learn. Every mistake becomes information, every challenge becomes experience, every uncomfortable moment becomes evidence that she can handle more than she once believed. She builds confidence through action, not just positive thinking. She keeps promises to herself. She does difficult things even when she feels nervous. She speaks up when she would rather remain silent. She tries new opportunities even when failure is possible. She walks away from unhealthy situations even when part of her wants to stay. Each decision strengthens self-trust, and self-trust creates a different kind of presence. She doesn't need to announce that she is confident. She simply behaves like someone who respects herself. She can enter a room calmly, communicate clearly, and leave without spending hours wondering whether everyone approved of her. She becomes less interested in performing confidence and more interested in living it. She doesn't compete for attention. She doesn't create jealousy. She doesn't pretend to be unavailable just to make someone chase her. She doesn't need games because she trusts that the right people will appreciate authenticity. Her confidence becomes attractive because it feels genuine. It isn't demanding attention. It isn't trying to dominate the room. It is simply comfortable existing without permission. And the more she trusts herself, the more magnetic she becomes, because she no longer needs the world to constantly tell her that she is enough. She knows that she can grow without hating who she currently is, improve without believing she is broken, accept compliments without becoming dependent on them, receive criticism without allowing it to destroy her, and walk away from rejection without allowing someone else's decision to determine the value she carries within herself, creating a presence that feels calm, grounded, authentic, and quietly powerful even when she says very little, and allows her confidence to speak through the way she lives, chooses, responds, and continues becoming the woman she respects most herself. A naturally magnetic woman understands that investing in herself is not selfish. It is one of the clearest ways to communicate that she values the life she has been given. She doesn't wait for someone else to motivate her, rescue her, tell her that she is capable. She takes responsibility for her growth and begins asking herself what she can learn, improve, build, and experience. She invests in her mind by reading, learning, asking questions, and challenging old beliefs. She doesn't assume that intelligence means knowing everything. She remains curious. She listens to different perspectives and allows herself to change when new information proves that an old belief no longer serves her. She understands that a woman who keeps learning becomes difficult to manipulate because she develops the ability to think for herself. She also invests in her physical well-being. She takes care of her body, not because she needs to meet someone else's beauty standard, but because she wants to feel strong, energetic, and confident. She understands that self-care is not about perfection. It can be as simple as getting enough rest, moving her body, eating in ways that support her energy, or creating moments where she can breathe and reset. She invests in her emotional growth as well. Instead of blaming everyone else for how she feels, she becomes curious about her own reactions. She asks why certain situations trigger insecurity, why certain relationships feel familiar even when they are unhealthy, and why she sometimes accepts things she knows she doesn't want. This self-awareness gives her power. She begins recognizing patterns instead of repeating them. She learns to communicate instead of expecting people to read her mind. She learns to express disappointment without attacking. She learns to apologize when she is wrong without feeling humiliated. She learns that emotional strength does not mean never feeling hurt. It means learning how to move through difficult emotions without allowing them to control every decision. She also invests in her skills and career. She understands that confidence becomes stronger when competence grows alongside it. She learns something new. She improves her communication. She develops professional skills. She explores opportunities. She takes herself seriously even before everyone else does. She doesn't need to announce every goal. Some of her biggest transformations happen quietly. She studies when nobody knows. She works when nobody applauds. She practices when nobody is watching. She continues even when motivation disappears. That private discipline creates self-trust. Every time she keeps a promise to herself, she becomes more confident. Every time she finishes something difficult, she learns that discomfort does not mean she should quit. Every time she chooses long-term growth over temporary comfort, she becomes stronger. She also invests in her financial independence. She learns about money, budgeting, saving, earning, and making thoughtful decisions about her future. She understands that financial confidence can give her more freedom to make choices based on what she genuinely wants, rather than what she is forced to accept. She invests in relationships too, but she becomes more selective. She doesn't collect people simply to avoid being alone. She chooses relationships that encourage honesty, growth, respect, and mutual support. She understands that the people around her can influence the way she thinks about herself and what she believes is normal. She also stops comparing her timeline to everyone else's. She realizes that another woman's success is not evidence that she is behind. Someone else's marriage, career, appearance, or lifestyle doesn't determine the schedule of her own life. She focuses on becoming better than the woman she was yesterday instead of trying to become better than everyone around her. And she learns to enjoy her own company. She can spend time alone without immediately reaching for attention. She can go somewhere by herself. She can enjoy a quiet morning. She can read, reflect, travel, create. Simply rest without feeling like something is missing. This independence becomes part of her magnetism because she doesn't enter relationships from desperation. She enters them from choice. She doesn't expect another person to complete her. She wants companionship, not rescue. She wants partnership, not permission. She wants love, but she doesn't want to lose herself in order to receive it. The more she invests in herself, the more interesting her life becomes. She has ideas, experiences, goals, stories, skills, and perspectives. She isn't waiting for someone else to create excitement for her because she is already building a life that has meaning. She understands that becoming magnetic is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming deeply connected to herself. It is about respecting her mind, caring for her body, developing her abilities, understanding her emotions, strengthening her independence, and creating a future that reflects her values. And eventually, she stops asking, will they invest in me? And starts asking, am I investing in myself? Because she realizes that the relationship she has with herself sets the standard for the relationships she allows into her life. More consistently she chooses growth, learning, discipline, self-care, and meaningful experiences, more she becomes the kind of woman who doesn't need to chase opportunities, attention, or approval. She has already become deeply invested in the most important project she will ever build, the woman she is becoming every single day, quietly strengthening her confidence through the choices she makes when nobody is watching and nobody is there to applaud her progress. A naturally magnetic woman understands that her life should never depend entirely on whether someone else chooses to stay. She can love deeply, build meaningful relationships, and enjoy companionship, but she also has a world that belongs to her. She has goals, interests, friendships, routines, dreams, and ambitions that continue to exist whether she is in a relationship or standing completely on her own. She doesn't put her entire life on pause while waiting for someone to arrive and make everything meaningful. She stops believing that happiness has to begin with a relationship. She doesn't tell herself, when I find the right person, then I'll travel, then I'll pursue my goals, then I'll become confident, then I'll finally enjoy life. She understands that waiting for someone else to create her future can keep her trapped in a life she never intentionally chose. She begins with what she has, where she is, and whatever opportunities are available to her, she builds her own interests. Maybe she loves reading, traveling, fitness, business, art, music, learning, nature, cooking, writing, or exploring new places. Specific interest doesn't matter as much as the fact that she has something that belongs to her. Something that makes her curious. Something that gives her energy. Something that reminds her that she is more than someone's girlfriend, wife, daughter, employee, or friend. She also builds meaningful friendships. She doesn't disappear from her social world simply because she enters a relationship. She continues nurturing connections with people who genuinely care about her. She understands that healthy relationships create space for multiple forms of love and connection. A romantic relationship can be important without becoming the only relationship that matters. This gives her emotional balance. If one person becomes distant, the entire world doesn't collapse. She still has people to talk to, goals to pursue, places to go, and experiences to enjoy. She can miss someone without losing herself in the process. She also develops personal goals that are not dependent on anyone else's approval. She may want to advance in her career, start something of her own, improve her finances, learn a new skill, become healthier, or simply become more disciplined. She understands that goals give direction to her energy, and she doesn't need to announce every goal. Some of the most meaningful transformations happen privately. She works on herself when nobody is watching. She saves money when nobody is impressed. She studies when nobody is praising her. She exercises when nobody is asking about her progress. She continues because the goal matters to her, not because she needs an audience. This creates a different kind of confidence. She begins trusting herself because she repeatedly sees herself follow through. She knows she can create something from nothing. She knows she can start again after failure. She knows she can handle difficult seasons without immediately searching for someone to rescue her. She also becomes more careful about how she spends her time. She realizes that time is one of the few things she can never get back. So she stops giving endless hours to people who only bring confusion. She stops spending every evening checking her phone for someone else's attention. She stops allowing unnecessary drama to consume the energy she could be using to build her future. Her attention becomes an investment. She asks herself, is this helping me become the woman I want to be? If the answer is no, she becomes willing to make changes. She also understands that independence doesn't mean refusing help. She can accept support. She can appreciate love. She can allow someone to care for her. She simply doesn't make dependence her identity. She wants partnership where two complete people contribute to each other's lives rather than one person becoming responsible for the other's entire sense of purpose. This changes the way she approaches relationships. She isn't searching for someone to save her from boredom, loneliness, insecurity, or lack of direction. She is looking for someone who can walk beside the life she is already creating. Someone can add to her happiness. They don't become the source of it. She can enjoy romance without abandoning her routine. She can fall in love without forgetting her friends. She can become emotionally close to someone without giving up her ambitions. She can make compromises without constantly sacrificing the things that matter most to her. And because she has built a life of her own, she becomes more selective about who enters it. She doesn't ask only, do they like me? She also asks, do I like who I become around them? She notices whether someone supports her growth or slowly encourages her to become smaller. She notices whether the relationship creates peace or constant uncertainty. She understands that a beautiful relationship should not require her to disappear. Her own life becomes a source of stability. When things are difficult, she has something meaningful to return to. When someone disappoints her, she can continue moving forward. When a relationship ends, she can grieve without believing that her entire identity has ended with it. She knows there is still a future waiting for her. This is one of the reasons naturally magnetic women often seem so grounded. They aren't desperately searching for someone to complete them. They have already begun completing the life they want to live through their choices, their goals, their friendships, their experiences, and their relationship with themselves. They don't need to make anyone jealous by showing how busy they are. They aren't pretending to be unavailable. They aren't playing games. They simply have a life that is genuinely full, and when someone enters that life, they are welcomed as a meaningful addition, rather than treated as the missing piece, because she has learned that her identity should never disappear inside another person's world. Her dreams should never become secondary simply because someone loves her, and her future should never depend entirely on whether another person stays, creating a woman who can love with an open heart while still standing firmly inside her own life, continuing to grow, explore, learn, build, connect, and move toward the future she wants without waiting for someone else to give her permission to begin. A naturally magnetic woman understands that one of the most powerful forms of connection is making people feel genuinely seen, heard, and valued. She doesn't walk into every conversation thinking about how she can impress others. Instead, she becomes curious about them. She listens carefully, remembers small details, and gives people her full attention when they are speaking. In a world where so many people are waiting for their turn to talk, genuine listening becomes a rare quality. She doesn't listen simply to respond. She listens to understand. When someone shares a problem, she doesn't immediately turn the conversation back to herself. She doesn't rush to give advice unless it is wanted. Sometimes she simply allows the other person to express what they are feeling without judgment. That simple act can make someone feel respected in a way that words alone cannot create. She also understands the difference between attention and presence. You can spend an hour with someone while constantly checking your phone, thinking about something else, or preparing your next response. Being physically present is not the same as being emotionally present. A magnetic woman learns to put distractions aside when a meaningful conversation deserves her attention. She asks thoughtful questions. Instead of only asking, "How was your day?" she may ask what someone enjoyed, what challenged them, what they are working toward, or what they are excited about. She remembers what people tell her and brings it up later. When someone says they have an important meeting, she remembers to ask how it went. When someone mentions a goal, she remembers it. These small details communicate something powerful. I was actually listening. She also knows that making people feel valued does not mean agreeing with everything they say. She can respect someone's feelings without automatically accepting every opinion. She can disagree without humiliating them. She can have a different perspective while still communicating with kindness. This makes her conversations feel safe. People don't feel like they have to perform around her. They can speak honestly. They can admit mistakes. They can share ideas. They can express uncertainty without immediately feeling judged. She also avoids making every conversation about herself. She doesn't constantly compete with other people's stories. If someone says they traveled somewhere, she doesn't immediately feel the need to explain how much farther she has traveled. If someone shares an achievement, she doesn't need to respond with a bigger achievement of her own. She understands that someone else's moment doesn't take anything away from her. She knows how to celebrate people. This is especially powerful among women because comparison can sometimes quietly enter relationships. A magnetic woman doesn't treat another woman's beauty, success, confidence, or relationship as a threat. She can genuinely compliment someone without feeling smaller. She can celebrate another woman's progress without turning it into a measurement of her own. She also understands the importance of names, eye contact, tone, and body language. These small things communicate respect. When she speaks with someone, she tries to make them feel that they matter in that moment. She doesn't need expensive gestures or dramatic compliments. Often, simple attention is enough. She also knows when someone needs encouragement rather than criticism. She doesn't use people's vulnerabilities as weapons later. If someone trusts her with something personal, she treats that trust seriously. She understands that emotional safety is part of genuine connection, but making people feel valued doesn't mean becoming a people pleaser. She doesn't agree with everyone just to be liked. She doesn't say things she doesn't mean. Her kindness is authentic because it comes from respect rather than fear. She can be honest while remaining compassionate. She also gives people room to be themselves. She doesn't constantly try to control how others behave. She understands that everyone has different personalities, experiences, and ways of communicating. She doesn't demand that everyone think like her before she can respect them. This quality makes her memorable because people often forget exactly what someone said, but they remember how they felt around them. They remember the person who listened without interrupting. They remember the person who encouraged them when they were struggling. They remember the person who noticed their effort when nobody else did. They remember the person who made them feel like they mattered. A magnetic woman creates that feeling naturally because she isn't constantly focused on herself. She understands that confidence gives her the freedom to be curious about others. She doesn't need to dominate conversations to prove her intelligence. She can listen and still remain powerful. She can ask questions and still remain confident. She can give someone else the spotlight without feeling invisible, and this changes her relationships. People trust her more easily. Conversations become deeper. Friendships become stronger. Romantic connections become more meaningful. Professional relationships become more respectful. She creates an environment where people feel comfortable being authentic. She understands that true magnetism isn't simply about being noticed. It is about making meaningful moments with people. It is about leaving someone feeling respected rather than judged, encouraged rather than diminished, and understood rather than ignored. And perhaps the most powerful part is that she doesn't use this quality as a strategy to make people like her. She listens because she genuinely cares. She remembers because the person mattered to her. She encourages because she understands the power of kindness. She gives attention because she knows that everyone wants to feel seen, and when she combines that genuine presence with strong boundaries, self-respect, confidence, and authenticity, she becomes the kind of woman people naturally feel drawn toward, not because she demands attention, because her presence makes people feel that for a moment they can put down the pressure to perform, speak honestly, and simply be themselves, creating connections that feel deeper, warmer, and more meaningful without needing to force them or turn them into a performance of popularity, charm, or approval.